You're listening to the How to Talk to Girls podcast with your dating coach, Trip, from tripadvice.com. Do you struggle with getting girls to like you? You'll learn step by step how to talk to girls to create deep connections, whether it be for one night of wild fun, a 1-week fling.
Are you currently involved in a sexual relationship?
Or for a lifelong partner.
Full of long-lasting pleasure.
Here's your host, Trip.
Hello and welcome to the How to Talk to Girls podcast. This is your host, Trip, from tripadvice.com. Now, today's episode, we're doing another interview, and it's with a lovely woman named Veronica Grant. And I've never interviewed a person like this before. Now, literally, I've actually never interviewed her, but I'm talking about a dating coach for women. That's right. This is a dating coach for women. And the reason why I wanted to have her on was because I wanted you to understand what women are going through. What are their fears? What are their frustrations? How are they feeling when it comes to dating? I feel like if you have that information, it's going to be very helpful to you in terms of your dating life, right? Once you understand how a woman's mind works, you're going to be able to be more successful at dating because you know how it all works, right? You know how she works, you know how you work, and you can start putting things together, and you can be more empathetic towards the women that you meet and date. So Veronica Grant, a dating coach for women, is going to help us today. She's going to be diving into what it is that women think about when it comes to dating and really just go into some details in terms of how she even helps some of these women. So listen up, you're going to really learn a lot here and of course enjoy this episode today. So here's my interview with Veronica Grant. Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Awesome. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast today. This is something a little bit different that I wanted to do. We talked about this just a bit ago, but I think it'd be really interesting for the guys to understand kind of like the female perspective in terms of what their issues are in terms of dating. And you know all about that because you are a female dating coach, meaning you are like the female version of me. I work with men and you work with women. So
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So let's get into it. Just maybe tell the guys how you got started in doing this, and then we can go into some cool information.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started as a health coach, and I was helping women just feel better in their bodies, feel more confident in their bodies, despite their weight. If they wanted to lose weight, then I was helping them do that. And again, that from that healthy perspective. But a lot of my clients kept saying, well, I just want to lose weight because I want to date again. And I just feel crappy about myself. And I don't want to put myself out there when I feel this crappy. And it just kept coming up again and again. And then even my married clients would say, well, I just don't really like having sex with my husband because he's skinnier than me, or I don't feel, again, good in my body. And again, it just kept coming up and up again and again. And I was working with a business coach at the time, and she was like, well, have you thought about switching just to being more of like a dating confidence or a dating mindset coach? And I was like, no, I'm a health coach. And I was pretty tied to that for a while. And then again, it just kept coming up again and again. And I decided to make the switch. And I did that about a year ago. And it's been amazing ever since.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What do you think when you're working with women is their number one issue? Like what comes up the most in terms of dating issues for women?
The number one issue is a fear of getting rejected, whether it's straight up a rejection or just a rejection in the sense that they don't text you back, or there's not a second date, or someone doesn't, even some people don't even want to get on Tinder or anything like that because God forbid someone swipes left on them, even though they would never even know. But just that thought of that just trips them up, and it paralyzes them or just keeps them dating what they would call safe men. So yeah, I mean, that would just be the number one issue, just fear of rejection.
Isn't that funny? That is
is that number one fear for men too?
That is the number one fear. I like that also. This is really awesome that you don't know much of the men's issues and you're working with women. I like that you don't know that, so we can kind of like discover things together like live here on the call.
Yeah. just when we were talking briefly offline before we started recording, and you kind of mentioned how I could help to humanize some of the women that your men were going on dates with. And I was like, that is exactly why I actually invited a male dating coach onto my podcast to humanize men, because I think that we do forget that there's just simply another person on the other side of the table or behind that dating profile or Tinder profile or whatever it is.
Yeah, isn't that funny? So many misunderstandings. It's just crazy. Like we, as guys, our issue is that we tend to put women on a pedestal. We see a beautiful woman and we think that we have to do all these things to get her, and she is, the princess, she's the queen, and they don't have flaws. It's like women take a dump too. You know what I mean? It's like women are people too. And I mean, it's funny. I actually didn't think you were going to say that, because I do know a few other coaches for women, and I didn't think you were going to say fear of rejection. I know that's definitely one of them, but I thought you were going to say something completely different. But knowing that that's something you hear all the time is even shocking to me. I'm hoping that that's at least a little bit like eye-opening to the guy who's listening. Because, yeah, that's. I mean, it makes sense. Of course, of course, they're scared. We're all scared. No one wants to get rejected. No one wants to make a mistake or be looked at in a negative way. Like, we don't want that. We're human beings, and we don't like mistakes and things and to go a wrong way. We don't like being rejected. That's not a good thing. So what do they say about it?
They just, it's not that they don't say, it's not that they just talk about it. It's just that they just simply don't do anything because of this fear of rejection. They won't approach a man at a bar. I have a lot of women who will not send a first message on a dating site that they're using unless it's Bumble, which they have to send the first message. But on Match.com or Tinder, the more traditional sites, they won't send a first message. It's just so funny to hear your perspective that men put women on pedestals, because I think if my audience were to hear that, they would be completely shocked, because I feel like, or they feel like they are always the ones having to chase the guy, get the second date, get the text back, or the little blue bubble, if the little blue bubble says that it was read and there's no response within like 5 minutes, then like their world just starts falling apart and they can't focus on anything else, and they take it so personally. But one thing that I have actually the women in my community do is to practice getting rejected, to go out and get rejected, whether in a romantic sense or not. So even it's just something silly like checking out at Whole Foods and saying, hey, can I have a 10% discount on this? And knowing that you're probably going to get rejected, although you never know, right? But it's just a practice that just because you get rejected, that it doesn't mean anything about your sense of self or your sense of worth. Because I think that's where it really comes down to. When they get rejected, they just believe that it's because they're not skinny enough, or they're not pretty enough, or they said something stupid, or, I mean, the list goes on. They can make up anything in their head about why they may have gotten rejected. So I just try to teach them that just go out and get rejected and see that you can still be the same awesome person that you are, even if you don't get the 10% discount at Whole Foods, or if you don't get that second date. And another thing that I always tell my clients is a yes lives in the land of no. Again, because like inaction is really their number one result of this number one fear of rejection. So I just tell them, if you go out and get rejected and get 10 no's, you'll get to a yes, but you're not going to get a yes in the land of not doing anything, of inaction. So that is just one thing I always say over and over again. A yes lives in the land of no's, and it tends to help them a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I always say this, you can go out and approach, let's say 10 girls, and 9 of them might say no and reject you. One of them is going to say yes. What's going to happen there is something magical. When you end up going, and in theory, you approach 10 girls and one of them says yes, you're not going to be sitting there saying to yourself, oh, but those other 9 didn't like me. You're not going to care. And I'm not saying that to tell you not to care. You're just naturally not going to care. You're going to be so excited and pumped up for the girl who, you connected with, that those other 9 aren't going to matter.
Yeah.
It's just not going to matter to you. So,
Yeah.
it's rejection is just part of the game. Like, it's just going to happen. Like, you're going to get rejected. There's no way around it. Not everyone's going to be a fit. Not everyone is having the best day. Not everyone's going to want to, be with a guy or a girl like you. It just, people like different things and are attracted to different people, and that's okay. That's just part of it. You know what I mean? Like I always say also, just throwing a sports analogy here, is like a good batting average if you play baseball is 300. 300, that's 3 out of 10. That's a good batting average, 3 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? So it's just to show you there's something else out there where it's like, no, you're not going to hit all the balls. You're not going to be killing it the entire time. It's going to be a little bit of a journey for you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
what else do you think you could think of that'd be interesting for these guys to hear about, in terms of of what women are thinking and what they're coming to you for and what they struggle with and other questions that they ask you?
So another thing that really gets women frustrated is the constant texting, or the endless texting, I should say. Not the texting in sense of, hey, good morning, just thinking of you, or logistics if you're meeting up with someone, but the conversations that really would be better had over a telephone conversation or a date. That gets really frustrating for women. And I think sometimes they might ask for a phone conversation instead of the texting, but a lot of times they think that it'll come off as too confrontational or too high maintenance or needy or whatever story they have in their head. But I think that the texting, it kind of it's kind of a race to the bottom, because we know that when you get a notification on your phone or a little red number on your Facebook notification, that you get a little hit of dopamine, right? And so we both like that, and or we, as in both men and women, like that. And so we just keep texting each other because, again, we get that hit of dopamine. It's like the race to be who's going to be the last person to send the text in the conversation. And it's definitely not helpful, and it doesn't go anywhere. And for at least my clients, it drives them crazy. And it's kind of a game that they got into themselves. But just knowing, I think if men just knew just to pick up the phone and call, I think so many women would appreciate that. Just a phone conversation, like before a first date, if you haven't met them, if it's, an online thing, or between dates, would be really thoughtful, and something that a lot of my clients would love.
Cool. Yeah, no, for sure. I'll tell you a little kind of technique that I use, when I'm doing online dating, and I'll share with you and the guys listening. But basically, I prefer that. What I really like to do is I like to almost have a pre-first date, a phone date, or or even a FaceTime date before the actual date. And it really kills like 2 to 3 birds with one stone.
Yeah.
So basically what happens, right, is you end up, first of all, being able to build some sort of vibe and make it more comfortable for when you guys finally do meet. Right? It's not like, hey, I remember you from Bumble or Tinder or online dating or even whatever. Even if you met her in person, it's like, at least you can create more of a connection. It's a little bit more comfortable. Is to text them and say like, hey, I know this is even better. Before you even set up the date, you can call them, or you can say, hey, let's have a phone date. And on the phone, you guys can talk and you can get to know each other and do what you would do on a first date, just over the phone, not in person. And then at the end of that conversation, you take the next level and say like, hey, so, what are you up to the rest of the week? We should grab a drink or grab a bite to eat or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And you can also even step it up and do some sort of FaceTime. And that's not going to be for everyone. I think some girls might not necessarily be comfortable with it right away. I mean, some guys neither. But that's a really great way too to kind of get to know them, and also really helps with not being catfished too. Just so you're talking to the person that you actually think is on the online dating site or whatever, like, you know for sure it's that person. So you're not tricked when you finally meet up with them. So FaceTiming before the date is a
Yeah.
really good idea too.
Does
And
that happen? I've never heard of that, but
yeah,
I'm assuming
yeah.
everything happens online.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's extremes where you literally, it's
Right.
a whole different person. I've never
Hmm.
experienced that. But I'll be honest with you, I've been tricked before where I've, met up with a girl and she just looks nothing like her pictures. She's the same girl, you can tell, but I'm like, okay, you took those pictures like 5 years ago. It's just not you. And I hate to sound superficial here, but, I know what I'm attracted to and I know what I'm not. And
Hmm.
also, it's also really, it's unattractive beyond the fact of looks, but like that was a very unconfident move. It's like you're putting yourself out there in a whole different way. Like, why? Like, you had to put a picture of you like 7 years ago. Why? Because you're not confident in who you are today. It's like that kind of shady move just kind of shows me the type of person you are. So that is
Yeah.
another area where I'm like, I don't know if I trust you, you know. So
Right.
so yeah, and so I think it's a smart idea to do that. Again, it's not something you have to do, but why not? You know what I mean? We have the technology
Mm.
now. Get on the phone, get on the FaceTime, talk to them, get to know them a little bit. I mean, listen, I've also been on the phone with some girls who, you know, their personality is just like, it just totally doesn't shine. And I was like, oh wow, I'm glad we had this phone call because we just don't gel. Like, we're not talking,
Hmm.
the way like that would be smooth where I'd want to talk to you again. It's not a great conversation. I'm getting to know you. We don't share the same values. Okay, this is a waste of time. Like, I don't think that a date for both of us would really go anywhere or do anything. As beautiful as
Right.
or attracted to as I may be, it's not going to work.
Right.
So I think it's good to do that, and I'm glad that you're giving that advice as well.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely encourage the phone call, especially because I have a lot of single moms in my community, or just women who just have really busy jobs, and then they complain that dating takes a lot of time. And I'm just like, well, just have a phone conversation. You can save yourself so much time from having to get dressed, go down and meet someone, and within the first few minutes that it's just not going to, go anywhere. So yeah, phone conversations are definitely a big thing that my community definitely wants. And not just before the first date, but this time in kind of like that time between when you're dating and then if it keeps moving forward to where you're quote unquote official or whatever you call it. But that gray area, I think, gets really anxiety provoking for a lot of the women in my community. Again, because they don't know when and if there will be another date or like when the next time they'll see that person, especially if they really like it. And they don't want to always feel like they're the ones that have to ask for the phone call or ask for the next date or be in charge of when they see the person again. Yeah, I mean, that just causes so much anxiety for the women in my community.
Yeah, just that. I think for guys too, maybe not as much. Maybe not as much for the guys, but I could see that for
Hmm.
the women. It's like, where's this going? What's going on? Does he like me? Is
Hmm.
he into me? I think guys struggle with that a little bit, but they struggle more with, does she initially like me? I think it's more so of the really very, very beginning of dating, first meeting her, even going on a first date, even going on a second date. At just those very beginning parts, they're wondering if the woman is interested in them. But I could see for a woman, it goes far beyond that. They want to make sure
Yeah.
the guy is interested the whole way through.
Yeah. And it's not so much that they, need to know, like, are we going to be official? Are we going to be getting engaged in the next year? Like, they're not like going to that extreme. But I think they could just use some signs that would help them to feel more confident that that person was still into them, even if it means, even if they don't talk in a couple of days, because people are busy with jobs, everything, but there is enough positive signs from other things that they would just feel more safe and secure and could go about their day and do what they needed to do and not have to worry about, oh my gosh, when am I going to see me again? Does he like me? I don't know what's going on here. Like that whole hamster wheel.
Right, right. Yeah, that's definitely a big issue for women. That's true. What else? What are some other things that women have issues with? Like, let's go deep. Like, what are some of the deep, dark, secrets and issues that these women have, when they're coming to you for help?
Um, it all goes back down to, I mean, if we're going to the basement, probably the
Yeah.
number one thing that I ultimately have to help women with. I mean, again, they come to me for dating, but what I'm really helping them uh, to do is for them to believe for themselves that they are worthy of the relationship that they truly want. And
Hmm.
somewhere along their life, usually stemming from their parents, they were taught somehow that they were not worthy of what they wanted, and so, or they didn't get the love that they wanted from their parents, and so they go out and fill that void, usually with a romantic partner. And guys do the same exact thing. So usually it has to do with whatever was going on with the mother for guys, and then for women it's whatever was dealing or whatever was lacking in their relationship with the father. It's not always like that, but probably definitely the majority of the time it is. So even if it's something and it doesn't mean that all of the women that I work with are coming from bad families or abusive families. I mean, some are, but for the most part, it can just be something simple. Well, my parents were, really busy and didn't give me time and attention. And so now they're seeking that attention out elsewhere. And usually it ends up, that need for attention, it usually ends up showing its ugly head in a romantic relationship, because there is that vulnerability piece and just that sense of being so open and exposed to someone that you just don't get in other relationships and non-romantic relationships. So we have to do a lot of healing work and forgiveness work and journaling. And I'm a yoga teacher, so I also include meditation a lot in my practices with the women I work with, just so that they first can just believe for themselves that they can, and my whole thing is treat yourself the way you want to be treated. So I help them literally treat themselves the way they want to be treated by their ideal partner and their ideal relationship, so that then when they go out and date men, they don't feel like they need to have all of this attention from them or need to get their love, but it's simply that they can bring, their love and desires and all the things that they have to the relationship, and the other guy can bring all that to the relationship as well, and then it can grow from there, rather than it being, I talk about this idea of a puzzle piece, two puzzle pieces versus a Venn diagram. And the two puzzle pieces is, there's a void and there's like the little part that goes into the void, and that creates a puzzle piece, and that's representative of just, I need to get my love, or I need to get my happiness, or I need you to make me feel beautiful or sexy or whatever it is, and that can be dependent, and it can absolutely be codependent. So men can need the same thing, like that same validation from women as well, again, especially if they didn't receive that validation from their mothers. So what I help women create is this idea of the Venn diagram. So there's two complete circles, and then they're just simply merging together at the center. And so there's three parts in any relation, or in a healthy relationship. There's, the man, the woman, well, assuming we're talking about, heterosexual relationships, the man, the woman, and then the relationship, the part in the middle where the circles merge. And so that's really the essence of what I'm doing, is helping them just build their confidence, build their self-care plan, their self-love plan, and really just design the lifestyle that they love, so that they can have that complete circle and then find their other complete circle and then merge together at the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds about right. I think a lot of the issues that we have really do stem from how we were raised and our parents and things like that, So
Mm-hmm.
I think that you're doing great work there in terms of helping them realize that, and it sounds like let go and move on and be able to live a happier life so they can feel more confident with themselves and love themselves. And I try to preach that as much as I can on the podcast, to tell guys that when you really love yourself, that's when true confidence comes in. When you respect yourself and you have a lot of self-esteem, that yeah, you can really go a lot farther, because you stop caring about what people think of you, and you start acting in your true authentic self, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. And for men, it can be really hard. Like if they didn't get the validation from, when you're a little boy, like your mom is really the first woman who A, loves you, and B, tells you you're handsome, when you're dressed up for church on Sunday or whatever it is for Christmas. And if you didn't get that, then you will look for that in other, again, in women that you're dating, most likely. And when a man's in that type of cycle, then it's really common to attract women who just walk all over them. Like those types of men can usually be so sweet, and all of my clients' dream guy in terms of calling and doing all the things that we want them to do. But then the women that they end up attracting just kind of walk all over them, because again, they have some voids themselves that they are trying to fill. And so it's not that, again, that puzzle piece scenario that I was talking about earlier.
Right. Totally. Do you have any good tips for some of the guys listening? Maybe it's similar to, the work you do with women in terms of, how guys can feel better about who they are and feel comfortable with who they are.
Yeah. So the essence of what I do is figure out how you want to feel in your ideal relationship, and then start doing that for yourself. So, my whole thing is date yourself. I have a date yourself challenge. It's a huge part of my my brand, but also like literally the tools that I give my clients. And so for the guys listening, just to figure out how, like, what it is that you want to feel in your ideal relationship. Like, we're not talking about who she is. We're just talking about, like, what does that relationship do for you? What does it do for your life? What does it do for how you feel every day? So we can talk big picture things, but also just the day-to-day stuff. So does it make you feel grounded? Does it make you feel relaxed? Does it make you feel secure, safe, happy, loved, whatever it is? And then do little things for yourself every day that make you feel like that. So again, you don't need to get that from somebody else. So that's like the best thing to do if you're kind of looking at the big picture. And then in terms of, like, let's say you have a date next week and you want to, not screw it up. The number one thing I say is, and I think Marie Forleo originally said this in her book, How to Make Everyone Man Want You, or whatever her book is. And she says, date for fun, not for the one. And I think that is just a really, really good way to put it, to just stay in the present moment. Because as soon as you start putting people on pedestals, or, imagining like anything that may or may not happen in the future, or thinking about something that happened in the past, so like a past girlfriend or whatever, then it's really hard to show up authentically when your head is all over the place. And so if you're able just to kind of show up and have fun, and whatever happens post date happens, but that mindset allows you to be the most authentic, natural, just kind of cool, normal self you can be. And that will not necessarily mean that that relationship's going to go forward and you're going to have another date, and then a full-on relationship. But it does mean that you're setting yourself up for the best chance for that happening if it's meant to happen.
I like that. That's fantastic. Well, this has been great. Is there anything else you any kind of wise words you care to share with some of the guys listening that, are struggling to meet, understand, and attract women?
Yeah. So I think the other biggest thing that I always tell the women is, and this kind of goes back to our conversation about rejection, but if you say something, or if you feel something, say it. If you want something, say it. If you need something, say it. So if you want to text that person just to say good morning or I'm thinking of you, then do it. If you get rejected, then again, like we talked about before, it's just part of the game. If you want to go on a date again, ask for it. If you are feeling something, just say it. And I mean, this is something that I teach the women in my community again and again and again, because again, we're just so scared of rejection. We just end up we won't allow ourselves to be any remotely, we won't have, any vulnerability at all. And it's really hard to move forward in a relationship without that piece. So just say what you're feeling, ask for what you want. And if you get rejected, then you move on. But at least and you don't have to second guess yourself, or you don't have to go into the shoulda, woulda, coulda dance. And you can either, get what you want in the relationship, whether it's the next date or whatever, or you can move on to the next with a clean slate.
That's awesome. Very, very wise words. I like that, and very true. It's just all about going after what you want and removing the fear and going after it and not feeling ashamed to do it.
Yeah.
So that's
Definitely.
fantastic. Well, listen, this was fantastic. I think if any guys out there, who maybe want to work with you, if you'd be open to that, or would recommend any, women to work with you, I mean, go check her out. Your website is veronicagrant.com. Is that correct?
Yep. veronicagrant.com. And there's also 37 ways to date yourself on the site. They can grab that if that's interesting to them as well.
Cool. Yeah, go ahead and grab that on the site. Veronica, thanks again for sharing some of your knowledge, your wisdom, and kind of diving deep and giving us a little inside peek into the ladies' brains and some of the issues. It was definitely very eye-opening for me, and I hope it was for the guys listening. So thank you again.
Awesome, my pleasure. Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. Over 18 and want a question answered on the podcast? Email all your questions to trip@tripadvice.com.